lived in a handful of different apartment communities with my mum for the majority of my teenage years. Some were better than others, but incidentally, this occurred in the best of all of them. I was 16 at the time. There were a group of girls around 10 years old that liked to hang around and play volleyball together a lot. They hated me because I used to get with another kid and throw water balloons at them while they were playing. In hindsight, this was pretty creepy in itself, but at the time, it was hilarious. Well, I'd probably be the last person that they would have ever visited. But one day, when I was playing GTA in the middle of a summer day, they came and knocked on my door. I was going to make a smart-ass comment, but they actually looked pretty distressed, so I asked them what was wrong. They told me that there was a weird guy driving around near where they were hanging out a few times and wanted me to come by. I was the oldest kid in the complex, so it did make sense that they would come to me for this. We went and got my buddy, who was 14 at the time, and we went over there. Well, they were right. We got over there, and there was this guy in an old truck, still there, watching us approach. I was pretty fearless, so I flipped him off and started throwing a football with my friend for a while. The girls went back to playing volleyball too. And this is where it gets absolutely crazy. After about 10 minutes, the guy gets out and starts walking towards all of us. We decided to get the hell out of there, so we walk back towards my place, and he follows. I tell everybody to book it, so we start running, and he starts running behind us. At this point, I decide I'm going to get my mum's gun and scare this guy away, so we beat him back to my apartment and lock the door. I get the gun, it's unloaded, and it was totally idiotic, and go back outside to find that he's still waiting with a nasty look on his face. I look him dead in the eye and tell him to get the hell out of here and point the gun at him. He just smiles though, reaches into his belt and raises his own gun right back at me. It's at this point that I completely shit myself for the first time in the encounter. I know I can't fire. I went completely numb just standing there, gun raised for what felt like years. It was probably only about 15 seconds though, and neither of us said a word. After what felt like an eternity, he finally lowered his gun and just walked away. We called the cops after this, but omitted the part about my gun. But they never found the guy. I have not pulled a gun on anyone else since then, thankfully. But I was the neighborhood badass forever after that. But I absolutely did not want that designation. I mean, I didn't sleep for weeks. I can still clearly see the barrel of the dude's gun, staring me down in fact. I felt like the smallest dude in the world for those 15 seconds. This just happened about 2 hours ago, and I'm still shaking. I live on the coast of SC, and my backyard is directly on the marsh. I woke up and went downstairs to use the bathroom. I kept having this weird nagging feeling, like I was forgetting something or something was off. So I went to find my mother. She's a night owl and stays up super late doing gardening stuff, and she likes to feed the raccoons. I went to the backyard and I saw her about 100 yards from the back door, facing the marsh. I called out to her, but she didn't hear me, so I started to walk out to her. Once I started getting closer, she turned to face me with a completely blank expression. So I asked her what was wrong. I was about 12 feet away from her, and she turned back towards the marsh. And then the back door opens, and I turned to see my mum standing on the deck, and she called out to me asking me what was going on. Well, I have never run so fast in my life, but I looked back to the marsh and I could see that the thing was disappearing, and it looked just like my mum. I yelled at my mum to go inside, that there was something out there. I told her what I saw, and I've been crying and shaking since. We woke up my husband and my dad, and they think that I must have just still been in a sleep state, and I dreamed it or something. I just can't stop shaking though. What the hell just happened? Am I going crazy? Or did something try to lure me out to the marsh? I must be losing my damn mind, but I know what I saw. This happened around 1920 to 1930. My late great-grandfather was in Tennessee hunting for raccoons at night with his buddy. He was armed with a double barrel, currently still in my grandfather's possession, and his buddy had a .22, and with them were 2 dogs. They were deep into a trail along a fence when they heard a crunch from above them. They looked up to see a large black animal about 7 feet long with a tail. It was just watching them from the tree, silent. My great-grandfather's buddy fired a single shot at the creature, and it completely tanked it, jumped down about 15 feet, and went berserk. My great-grandfather said that it had jaws like a dog, and it was strong enough to lift a 40-pound dog off the ground and kill it with a chomp. A 12-gauge round to the shoulder slowed it down, but not for long. It swipes the other dog, killing it almost instantly. My great-grandfather's friend tries to run, but the animal swipes at him, hardly nicking his back and tearing his shirt half off of his body. My great-grandfather fires his last shot into the animal's stomach and throws down his gun. The animal has most of his attention on my great-grandfather's buddy, who is holding a lantern out in front of him and is growling like nothing he's ever heard. My great-grandfather takes his chance to yank a fence post out of the ground and beat the animal. He clubs it over the head and the spine, killing it in a few strong hits. It apparently whimpered like a dog. After better examination, they described the animal as having a big wolf head, big old paws with claws like a bear, and a skinny but strong body. It has long black hair and a tail, a bit like a puma. Well, they abandoned the hunt and gut the animal so that they can drag the body about 2 miles back to the cabin my great-grandfather lived in. And this is when the story gets weird. Apparently they take it to a guy with a scientific background in zoology or biology or something. The man eventually gets back to them, telling them to stay out of the forest at night, with no explanation of what the animal was. This story was retold to me by my grandfather, so some things might be a little bit twisted by memory, but my grandfather swears full truth on his part. One more important detail about the story, though, is my great-grandfather's position on the identity of the animal. Him and his buddy, along with my great-grandmother, who had seen the body, are adamant on the fact that it was not a bear or a panther, and the head was just like that of a wolf's. And that's the part that gets me. Bears and predatory cats use claws a lot, but wolves, not so much. And they were sure that it had a wolf-like head. If anyone has any ideas about what the heck this thing could be, please let me know in the comment section below. For reference, I'm a 20-year-old male who weighs about 200 pounds, and I'm 6 foot. I live in the suburban area of a very large city which I won't disclose because if I did, it would make it extremely easy to figure out where I live. Now, this experience happened to me about 2 weeks ago, so I'm still shaken up from it. I worked as a busboy on the weekend at a popular catering hall near where I lived. I'd been working there for a little over a month at that point, and it was actually my last day working there since I had another job that was offering me more hours with better pay if I was available on weekends. I had to work a party that lasted from 7 p.m. up until midnight, and I had to stay for almost 2 hours after the party was over to reset the room for the following morning. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, we finished resetting the room and we were told that we could leave. I was about to walk out of the building when my boss ran over to me and asked me if I could help her move a table to the upstairs room real quick, which I did. We placed the table where it needed to go and we both went back downstairs to leave. We walked outside and said goodnight to each other as she was getting inside an Uber car she had requested to take her home. Now, due to numerous setbacks in my life, I, unfortunately, do not have any driver's license yet. The catering hall is only about a 30 or 40-minute walk away from my house, and I don't mind walking. But during my time working there, my parents were nice enough to drive me to and from work. My mum told me to call her when I got off work, and she would give me a ride as she didn't want me walking home by myself late at night. I gave her a call, and her phone immediately went to voicemail, indicating that it was off. I tried again, and the same thing happened. I thought to myself that she must have fallen asleep on the couch and forgot to put her phone on the charger or something, so it just must have died. She actually does this pretty often at night. I called my dad hoping that his phone wasn't on silent, as it usually is when he goes to sleep. As luck would have it, it must have been, since I called his phone a few times and got no answer. Shit, I thought to myself. All my co-workers had left, so I couldn't ask anyone I worked with for a ride home, and the only bus nearby that would cut my walking trip in half stops running at midnight, so I couldn't even take the bus home. I also didn't call an Uber since I forgot my debit card and only had 2 singles on me, so it looked like I had to say screw it and walk home instead. To give some perspective, the catering hall was located in between a service road that runs along a major highway and a street that rode along the coast side. In order to get home, I had to walk down the service road for about 10 minutes until it hit the aforementioned coast side road, which went underneath the highway and out onto another side. Then I'd have to walk 2 more blocks up that road until it hit another road that I'd need to turn right on and walk for another 10 minutes. A half of which is spent walking up a hill until I reached the street that entered the community I lived in. So, I begin walking, and about 5 minutes later, I pass a bar where I see a car idling in the parking lot, with only the left headlight shining. The car was a white Toyota Camry, if I'm not mistaken, and there were 2 guys in the car smoking a cigarette. I quickly glanced over while passing by and didn't think much of what I had seen. The bar closed at 1 in the morning, but I figured that they were just 2 guys driving somewhere who pulled into the parking lot for a quick smoke. I turned onto the road that runs underneath the highway and was crossing the service road on the other side when I get the sudden urge to look behind me. I quickly looked back to see that same car driving down the road I was walking along. It wasn't exactly pitch black, but it was still relatively dark enough at that point where I might not have recognized the car if both headlights had been shining instead of just the left headlight alone shining in the darkness. I continued walking though, and eventually turned right onto the road with the hill I mentioned earlier when they slowed down next to me, and the passenger rolled down the window to talk to me. The road I turned onto was darker than the road I was walking on before, so I wasn't able to make out exactly what either of them looked like, but from what I could make out, they were probably in their late 20s, and they were wearing dark clothing. The driver was a white male, while the passenger, on the other hand, was a black male. The passenger rolls down the window and asks what I'm doing walking so late at night, to which I respond that I'm walking home from work. He asked me, would you like us to give you a ride home? I responded by saying, that's really kind of you, but I'm fine walking home by myself. Thanks for the offer though. He gets visibly annoyed though, and in a somewhat agitated tone, he said, "Nah man, it's dark and dangerous outside. You should let us drive you. We'll get you home safe and sound. Come on, you can trust us." At this point, the road was empty, except for this car containing the 2 men and myself. I get a bad feeling in my gut telling me to get away from these men. So I decline once again and dart behind the car and walk across the street. I walk up and turn left into a parking lot of a different community, about 2 blocks from my own that had a chain in front of it, preventing people without the proper key from parking inside the lot. All of a sudden though, the driver rolls down his window and screams, "Listen, get in the fucking car, you bitch!" He flips a U-turn and pulls up at the entrance of the parking lot, and the passenger jumps out and begins chasing me. The driver peels off presumably to get to the road on the other side to ambush me. My adrenaline immediately hits me, and I begin sprinting away from this crazy man. He yells, "We're gonna give you a ride home, stop running away from us!" I looked back and we had a bit of distance between us, He looked somewhat chubby and probably wasn't expecting me to be able to run so fast since I'm slightly overweight myself. I turn right onto the road and continue sprinting until I hear a car squeal down the road behind me. I look back to see a single headlight in the distance spreading down the road and the man chasing after me, starting to gain on me. I start freaking out and run and turn left onto the next road I reached and began making a break for the park since the area of the park I was running toward was dark and thick with trees, so I figured that I could lose them in there. As I ran into the park, struggling to continue sprinting as I was losing my breath, I look back to see the car turn onto the road. The driver stops the car and yells at his friend, "Get back in the car, the cops hang out back there, and they might see us. Just leave him, we've got to get out of here." The man chasing me then stops and runs back towards the car. He flings the door open, jumps into the car, and as soon as he slams the door shut, the driver flips a U-turn, speeds off, turns right onto the road up ahead, and disappears. The park is extremely large, and I remember my parents talking about a good number of drug deals taking place in the park, and the police were starting to send officers to patrol the area at night to bust up any drug deals they witnessed, and that must have spooked off my pursuers. I jogged quickly into the park and hid in the darkness underneath the trees for about 20 minutes, just to be sure that they were definitely gone and to try and calm myself down as much as I could. Afterwards, I walked through the park towards the exit into my community with my senses on hyper alert to be sure that the creeps went back. And hell, for all I knew, maybe there was another weirdo lurking around who would torment me if they spotted me. I exited the park and ran down the block, made a right onto my street and quickly unlocked my door, went inside and quickly locked it. My dog started growling upstairs, but stopped once he saw me walking up the stairs into the living room. I looked to my right to see my mum passed out on the couch, with the TV still on, as I predicted before. I walked into my room and flopped on my bed, exhausted, both physically and emotionally. My dog must have noticed something was wrong and jumped onto the bed and proceeded to lick me and comfort me. I was so relieved that I had gotten away from these two guys, and I was never happier to be in the safety of my own home than I was at that moment. I always knew it was dangerous to walk alone at night, and usually I don't, but I had hoped that when I did, I would be okay. I was proven wrong that night, though. I quickly ran my dog outside and changed into a t-shirt and shorts once I got back inside. I was thinking in what-ifs the entire time, but eventually I got myself to stop thinking in what-ifs and accepted that nothing happened, and to be thankful that I'll never have to know what would have happened. I eventually managed to calm myself down enough to fall asleep. I woke up close to noon later in the day, and I walked into the living room. I said hello to my parents, and my mum gets up and hugs me and apologizes profusely for falling asleep when she was supposed to pick me up. She said that she woke up around 5 in the morning and freaked out that she had fallen asleep, and thought that maybe something bad might have happened to me. She rushed into my room to see myself sound asleep and was relieved that I got home safe. I didn't say anything about what had happened on my walk home that night, as I knew that it would devastate them to hear that they almost lost their son, and my mum, she wouldn't be able to live with the guilt that she could have prevented the whole encounter if she had just stayed awake to come and pick me up. Up until this point, I actually haven't told anyone, except for one very close friend of mine, about this experience. I have no idea what those two guys' intentions with me were once I got into the car, but I know for a fact that they weren't good, and I don't think I ever want to find out what they were, in fact. I'm just glad that I'm safe, and after sharing this experience with you guys, I hope to move on from it and leave it in the past. G'day mates, it's Busta here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared their stories for us all here, and I hope you guys are all doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. If you would like more scary stories too, you can click on the card at the top right of your screen or on one of the annotations on your screen right now. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates throughout the week. And also, if you would like content early and completely advert-free for as little as $1 a month, feel free to click on the link to my Patreon account and sign up there for regular MP3 format stories. Thanks again for tuning in and for all the love as always guys, and I'll see you mates in the next one.